And on that note, I'd like to invite Paul Nel. Please join me on stage. There we go. Paul's got technology on the game. Paul, good to see you, and really a big welcome. And of course, Paul is the head of innovation at Experian. I've got to know Paul. He's extremely not only passionate, he makes things happen when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I know he's passionate, Experian's passionate, are really helping SMEs out there to think differently, to help them to get ahead. Of course, through credit scores and of course, helping SMEs to understand what they need to do to have that perfect credit score, because it has so many positive ramifications around that. But guys, as I said earlier, when I talk to Paul in a few seconds, I've got all the questions coming in here. So I'm going to refer to my paperwork if you don't mind, because these are spontaneous. It's live. It's kind of like as we go along, we make it happen. So guys, please also just put forward your questions. The Experian team is on the floor. The NSBC team is on the floor. You'll see the little icons. So please engage with them, and please help us that you can leave the session this morning well informed and ready to take action in any direction that you need to get things right. So Paul, I've got some great questions coming here this morning, and I know that this is really going to cover what we need to do. But Paul, your role at Experian, if you can get short insight.
Yeah, sure. Hello, Mike, and hello to everyone as well. A very good morning to you. Another beautiful Friday, halfway through February already. I don't know where this time flies, but it's just incredible. And it's a great opportunity and a privilege to be here with you today, Mike, and everyone. So as you know, Tabu started and launched our Experian campaign with NSBC a couple of weeks ago to see how we can help you as individuals and as small businesses become more financially fit. And we're very excited about that. The role that I fulfill at Experian is to look after the innovation portfolio. And effectively what we're trying to do here is take the business models that we currently have and have a look at how do we actually help organizations, consumers, and small businesses become more successful in everything that they do. So we are continually looking at building new products, new services, looking at new business models, and trying to really help and radically change the way that business in South Africa and across the continent works as well. And we are very privileged also to connect with our colleagues across the world. Experian is a global company, which Talbot talked about a couple of weeks ago as well. And so we can engage with other markets to bring lessons into that. So that's my primary role at Experian. I'm personally very passionate about how we can help small businesses flourish in this country. And so this whole United for Financial Health campaign that we are collectively in partnership with NSBC on is personally very exciting. So I'm actually got like a little goosebumps sitting here talking, and I'm looking forward to this interaction today. So, and just to let you know that I've got some of my magnificent colleagues who are also on this call. We'll be encouraging you to talk to them in the networking session later today. We'll touch on that now in this Q&A, but I encourage every single one of you to really take this opportunity to get something new for yourself, but we'll expand on that now. Thanks, Mike.
Paul, thank you for that. And of course, I'm going to refer to a couple of beautiful questions here this morning, Paul. But Paul, a quick reminder, why is managing your credit wellness so important?
Well, the simple reality, let's start with, today we're going to be talking about both businesses and consumers. So I'm going to be mixing in between the two of them. So forgive me if you get confused, put your hand up and ask which one. But let's start with SMEs. Let's start with your business. Let's start with who you are as an organization and what you're trying to achieve. Being credit fit, financially fit, allows your business to, number one, get access to credit. Number two is that you put yourself in a better position to negotiate better deals when you do get access. Obviously, access to funding is important. And then also it gives you a great trigger point to be able to grow your business. And in fact, sometimes, and we'll touch on this as well, we're coming out of a very interesting 2 years, aren't we? And sometimes credit can actually help us survive. And sometimes survival is more important at the moment than growing, but it's a trigger point to get into that sort of space. So going from that side. So your credit wellness will enable you as an organization to, number one, have more informed conversations with credit providers. And number two, also talk to your own customers and some of your people who you supply to as well, to make sure that there is a potential credit relationship or an engaging relationship economically there as well at the same time, because it allows you, if you're credit well, to understand who your clients are and how you can help them through their credit journey at the same time. So when we talk about these things, we shouldn't only limit ourselves to our own organization. We should look at the whole entire ecosystem that we engage with and work with to see how we can become potentially fit at the same time. And being credit wellness brings an element of discipline into your own life as well. We are disciplined in the way that we engage with our clients, the way that we market ourselves. We should also be looking at, from an operational administration perspective, to continually look at our financial fitness, our credit wellness, and that brings a lot of strength to that as well, Mike.
Okay, great. And Paul, today, today we are focusing on leading on from the last session. We're focusing on the topic of credit scores. Paul, what is a credit score, and how does it impact your credit wellness?
So, like Tava said a couple of weeks ago, these are always interesting questions, and we in South Africa have a very interesting dynamic in terms of individuals, consumers, and businesses. I was thrilled to see a lot of thumbs up coming just now to say who knows what their credit score is. That is very rare in South Africa. I think there's a very relatively small percentage of people understand or know what their credit score is, being a number or a classification, where culturally, like in the States and Europe, everyone knows what it is. It's like your ID number and credit score, they go hand in hand. But basically, a credit score is, simply put, is your reputation of how you've handled money, if that makes sense, okay? Mm-hmm. And the second thing, what it does is it reflects the likelihood that you will repay money that has been lent to you. So those are the two things: your reputation, so what have you done, and then it looks at the likelihood of paying back. Because what a credit score does is it creates a perception of risk associated to you as an individual, or to you and your wife or your husband, but then also to your company as well. And so the higher your credit score, so in other words, the better your credit score is, the higher the chances of you getting a successful loan application in or credit application in. But what it also does, it allows you to actually negotiate better deals. So you can have a better terms that relating to a transaction. So if you have a good credit score and you take out a home loan, you could negotiate with credit providers to get better terms. So improved rates, better tenor, things like that. So that's what the higher credit score allows you to do. But obviously the lower the credit score, the higher the perceived risk. So credit providers then take that into consideration when making a decision about whether to lend you credit based on your application. And that puts some difficulty in. So you could get access to credit, but then it'll be very expensive because of the lower risk, the lower credit score. So it is a truly important component to have a look at that. Why it's important to do is because it gives the Bureau Experian, what it does is creates a credit score around a consumer based on information which Tava talked about last week, which you'll go in a bit more detail now. But it gives us the ability to give trusted information to a credit provider so that they can make an informed decision about a credit application. That's the important thing. From a personal perspective, there are two types of credit scores. There's the general bureau score and then customized credit score. So the general bureau score is what your credit record looks like today. Now, you'll see in the chat that's coming out from my colleagues, from Nicola and Karen and everyone else, is that we encourage every single one of you on this call to go to mycreditcheck.co.za. Click on the links in the chat, please, if you haven't done so already, and register in 5 easy steps, and that will give you your personal credit score, okay? We as Experian are not allowed to withdraw it. I'd encourage you to do that now while you're listening in, because I know that we're all multi-talented. We can do two things at once. So I can wave to the camera and talk at the same time. You can listen to what we're talking about and go get your credit score checked. Afterwards, our consultants will be available to help you understand what the credit score does and help you understand what your score means and how can you improve it. So I really encourage you to do that. So in Experian, we have a whole different ratings. We've got no credit score, so that's what we call the credit inactive, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. Then you've got a poor credit score, below average, average, good, and great. And those are the indicative breakdowns of pie, slices of a pie, which help credit providers understand how they can, what decision they need to do to lend you some money. So that's the first thing. It's the general bureau score. It's your score. Okay, I want to emphasize this. This credit score belongs to every single one of you on this call. It's who you. It's a reflection of your payment history. It's your credit score. You own it, and you're responsible for it, if I could put it that way. Okay, so I encourage you to go and interrogate your credit score. Don't be afraid. Please don't be afraid. I think we can all say, oops, we missed a few payments here, or it's been a struggle here, so my credit score can't be good, or I've been declined and I don't want to look at it. What we'll talk about today is helping you, encourage you to do that, to make sure that you can understand your wellness, your fitness, and how to get fitter. So that's the general bureau score, available to all. And there's another myth which was highlighted last or 2 weeks ago by Tabu, is that the credit score doesn't belong to the bureau and it doesn't belong to the banks or the credit providers. It belongs to you, and you can access it for free, and you can access it anytime you want to for free through My Credit Check as well. And I highly recommend you do that. Just a quick highlight as well is that Experian is not the only credit bureau in South Africa. There are others. Each one of the credit bureaus have a different way of calculating a credit score. So if you look at the score and I say Experian says you're 669, and one of the other ones, whoever they are, says it's 450, you need to understand what that particular score means from a particular bureau. So please don't get too confused around that. But again, I encourage you to go mycreditcheck.co.za. It's up to date. It's a true reflection of who you are. The second type of personal credit score is the custom credit score. And what we do then as Experian is that we work with the credit providers in South Africa to customize the scores for their particular needs. Each one of the credit providers in South Africa, be it a bank, be it a retail lender, be it vehicle and asset finance or a home loan company or whatever it is, has a different perception of risk. They determine what their risk appetite is for a particular market, a particular segment, a particular geography, or a particular time in the year, or a particular asset base or non-asset base. And these banks use this information to make a credit decision. And so we can help them by customizing a credit score with consented data that helps them build up their scorecard, which, number one, gives them a much more trustworthy data set to make a decision in a much quicker way as well. So those are the customized scores that we help our clients in the credit providers take into consideration to make a decision. So that's there. I think that covers the personal stuff.
Right.
Mark, you want me to talk about the business as well?
Yeah, I was going to say on that note, thank you, Paul, and touching what you said, and the business credit score. Can you explain what that is and why it is different, Paul?
Yeah, look, a business credit score is a little bit more complicated. And that's just because of the nature of who a juristic entity is, a business entity is. The National Credit Act, which regulates all credit provision in this country, is quite well managed, well written, well structured, but very disciplined in terms of the approach that credit providers have to have. Now, when you are a small business, there's a lot of other factors which influence your creditworthiness, your reputation from a financial wellness perspective. And so what we do is that we put together a risk score and a risk summary component, and we merge them together. And the key drivers of a business score are not single person related. They relate to any payment information that you may have had in the past as an organization. We have a look at, are you overdue in terms of payments? What judgments may sit against an organization for whatever reason? How old is the business? Because the age of a business is very important in terms of understanding, is it got trading history or non-trading history? We have a look at trade references as well. So we look at the reputational components as well. So there's a questionnaire which I'll touch on just now that fits up. So we understand how you've done business from other companies' perspective in the past. We have a look at the directors of an organization. So if you're a single owner of a business, your consumer score fits in nicely. But if you are multiple directors or multiple principals, all of those individuals have an impact in terms of your business score as well. And then we take those type of elements and other factors, and we build it into building a credit score. So that's why it's a little bit more complicated, but it's so important. And again, I want to reinforce this message to everybody. Please check your credit score from a business perspective and a personal perspective. Spend time and effort really understanding what's included and not included, and how can you improve it going forward.
Paul, to add further, are there different types of business credit scores?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where the complexity comes even more. And I highly recommend that you chat to Karen and Tracy on the call here as well. So Karen's very active in the chat there. Thanks, Karen. So we Experian ranks businesses from a 0 to 100 sort of scoring. We've got maximum risk, so high risk companies have a score of less than 35, and then low risk companies 89 to 100. So that it breaks down into those components. There's a very good analytical data science behind all of that as well. So we've got an analytics team, which Tabo talked about a couple of weeks ago, that take this raw data, which got access to and consented to, and build these phenomenal scorecards, because it really gives a true reflection of the opportunity on the back end of it. So there are risk bands, and you'll find that when you apply for your business credit risk, you'll fall into one of those bands. And that is the information that credit providers sit with to make decisions about lending you credit. But also that's the information which organizations that you are supplying to will look at in order to grant you terms for the supply of your product and services to them as well. And it's a consistent story. So when you get a credit score from Experian, it's the same score across the board.
Okay. Paul, I've got a good question here. I am aware that as a consumer, I can get a free copy of my personal credit report from all the credit bureaus once a year. Do all credit bureaus have the same scores?
No, they don't. I touched on that just now.
You did?
Yeah, so all the credit bureaus collect the same information from multiple sources. Okay, so that's important. But each one of the credit bureaus, like Todd talked about a couple of weeks ago, bring their own intellectual property and their own scoring techniques into this as well. So the principles are the same, but the data science and the analytics tools behind the scene and the skill set of some of these clever oaks who think all this stuff out, oaks and ladies, who think all this stuff out, really looks at how do we actually improve the quality of a decision-making information for a person to make a decision. So the categorization is still right. You have a great credit score, you've got a poor credit score in between, or you don't have a credit score. Okay, so you're credit inactive. And the numbers are different, but the quality of the information is still the same. And I think that's important to have a look at. So I could say to you, my credit score from Bureau 1 is 890, and my Bureau score for another one is 450. It looks vastly different, but it's still effectively the same categorization. And that information is known to the credit providers, and they make the decisions based on the back end of that deal. However, it's important to understand that the core underlying data, which is shared, is the same. And it's what we do with the science, the data science and analytics tools on the top end of that, which brings value to you as a consumer and you as a small business.
Okay. And Paul, what factors influences your credit score?
Yeah, lots of factors influence the credit score. So let's take a look at that. So there's the core data, which sits around you as an individual or as a business. And so that's your name, your ID number, address, contact details, email address, phone number. Now those may seem as like, okay, that's boring, but I just want to give all of you here some very good advice. When you have a look at your credit score, have a look at how many addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, or everything on your bureau score, because you'll be surprised that there are a lot. Because the bureaus collate information from the first time you took out a student loan 28 years ago. I'm showing my age here. It's actually 30 years ago. But anyway, that's a different story. And all these addresses pile up over time. So if you've moved or you've changed your mobile number or something like that, all these things. So I encourage you to go and effectively clean out your core contact data. Have one email address, one physical address, and one phone number, because that has a very, believe it or not, actually impacts your credit score. So that's also quite nice. The other information which influences credit score is obviously your history in terms of debt products. So how well do you pay your accounts? What is your total debt exposure? How many products do you have? The number of accounts that you got out there as well. How are you utilizing your revolving credit? So your credit utilization, as we call it. So if you have a 50,000 Rand credit card facility, are you using 10 or 50? That also is a factor that plays into your credit score. How old are your accounts? One of the things that you'll learn about this sort of stuff is that if you have young accounts, so like 6-7 months, cell phone contract, and you're paying it regularly, so why is my credit score not improving? It's because we want to build up a history over a period of time. So the older a well-performing credit existing relationship is, the better it is for your credit score. So these are some of the dynamics that we'll talk about. And then other things like judgments against you, administration orders, all those type of things also impact your credit score. Obviously, the judgments are negative. So if you have judgments against your name, I encourage you to talk to our consultants, and we'll help you clear those judgments if they're on your bureau score, to make sure that that is eradicated. And then also, are you in debt review? Are you going through debt rehabilitation, which some people think they should be ashamed about, but not necessarily. If you are going through these scenarios, don't feel ashamed about it. Step up, contact your service providers, contact the people that you owe money to, and see if you can, help fix yourself. Take the, the credit pill, to make sure that you're feeling better. And then also another factor which influences your credit score is making a lot of credit inquiries at once, that type of scenario. So if you apply for 10 credit card applications instead of 1 or 2, that also has an impact as well. So be disciplined and wise when planning credit applications, that you do your homework properly, that you do a credit application which fits in nicely with what's affordable to you, what you can get hold of, and don't bombard everybody. Go to the ones that you believe are the good ones. There are other factors in this. Why credit bureaus is so important in this area, to let you all know, is that we have the trusted business model to take all of the credit providers' data and consolidate them to one and recommend it to an application that comes through. People say, why doesn't a bank just have their own bureau score? Well, they don't know what the other banks and other credit providers are lending to you as their customer. And so that's the whole consolidated viewpoint. And I think from a small business and a consumer perspective, it's critical that the entire view of who you are comes into that. And that's what the credit score components. It really is a reflection of who you've been and where you are and what your ability is to make payments going forward, and have a look at that. And nothing's missed, if I could put it that way. Yeah, hopefully.
Now, Paul, you've given us a long list here, but just for our attendees, can you kind of summarize key actions that will negatively or positively influence your credit scoring?
The most important action that every single one of us can take, every single one of us, is to check your credit score and interrogate it. Go through every single fine detail, have a look at it, because at the end of the day, you understand what's on there. There are times that there might be incorrect information. There are times when someone's used your ID or your cell phone number or something to try and apply for credit fraudulently. That's flagged. We help you understand those flags to prevent all those sort of components coming through as well. So please take that into consideration as well. So that's the first thing. The first thing that influences your credit score is you. Okay, roll up your sleeves. Go to mycreditcheck.co.za. Send an email to, can't remember, just remind me the business email address for your SME scorecard. I'll touch on that now. Your business credit scorecard. I'm sure Karen will put it into the chat. Thanks in advance, Karen. Send an email to them and get your business credit card. So that's the first thing that influences behavior. It's you, right? From a factor perspective, what negatively influences is, like I said, multiple applications for credit in a short period of time. That has, from a business perspective, an indication of financial instability. And it also says, well, are these people getting into panic mode and are they able to not repay debt? What it does is it triggers a decision-making process in the mind, because the scores also reflect human behavior, if I could put it that way. It's not like an automated bot that just runs these things. So those are the factors that look at it. The second thing is judgments. Unfortunately, in the economic times that we've lived in, particularly in the last 2 years, generally there's a lot of challenges that have been going across. Have a look at what judgments have been ruled against it. Some people don't even know that they've had judgments against them. It's just bizarre, but it's true. We see that not often, but we see that sadly. And then obviously a thing that impacts both business and personal credit scores is your payment history. Are you paying late? Are you missing payments? Are you making shortfall payments without notification? So if it's like a surprise to the bank or whatever it is, it's not that scenario. If you are struggling, and organizations and people are struggling, contact your credit provider and say, hey, listen, I am in a bit of turmoil, I lost my job, or times are tough, or whatever it is. And contact them, and what they do is they can help you get better terms or improve terms. Number one, that makes life easier for you because you can still settle the debt. And number two, it won't have a negative impact on your credit score. I'm just pausing here before we get into the positive things which influence the credit score, because we want to be positive today. Is that, Karen, thanks very much for putting that into the chat. For your business credit score, please email it to businessinfo@experian.com. There is a link to the NSBC website, which takes you to a form that needs to be filled in. It is not as simple as putting an ID number in for your personal credit checks, because of the nature of what I touched on earlier and the complexity of a small business credit score. But I encourage every single one of you here, if you are a business owner or you are a principal in the business, please do so today. We'll get a 5-day turnaround time, which give you a comprehensive business credit score as well. So what positively influences a credit score, let's end off with that one, is that you pay your suppliers, you pay your credit providers promptly, because that shows a willingness and a readiness and an ability to make those payments. The second thing is consenting and sharing information with the Bureau. So I talked earlier about going and making sure that all your contact details are up to date, 100% correct. And carry on doing that, because the cleaner your core information, the cleaner the data around you, the better for your credit score. If you go onto your credit score today, be it business or consumer, and you see something which doesn't make sense, or is old, or is updated, or sorted, or fully paid, or something like that, please go to our consultants. We will help clean that up, and then your credit score improves. And then obviously, the most important thing is regularly checking it, making sure that you can take into consideration the factors which influence your ability to get access to credit in the future. So one of the things, remember we're talking about your reputational payment history, having a look at your ability to make payments, it's a historical viewpoint. We also understand that if you are willing to do things differently and you change your behavior to polish things up and improve it in yourself, so much better it'll be for you going forward. So I highly encourage you to do that. Okay,
great. But that's a good one, Paul. Does paying an account in full automatically improve your credit score?
There's a classic Afrikaans word. It's my favorite Afrikaans word. I think my 78th favorite Afrikaans word is ja nee. So that's a bit of a direct translation as yes, no. When we build a credit score, remember what we are doing is that we are having a look at your history of performance. We are having a look at your ability of what you've done over the last 2 to 3 years or 5 years. The National Credit Access Bureau can keep information for 5 years, retention information for 5 years. So if you fully pay up your outstanding debt, okay, there's a couple of positive impacts. Number one is that obviously your amount that you owe is reduced. The second thing is that you can close an account. The number of accounts that you open is reduced, which is a positive impact to your credit score. But because we've kept history, because the score has to take history into consideration, which is by law according to the National Credit Act, if you were shortfall, if you had payment missed, or if there was some negative element, that will still be on the bureau record, which will still have a potential adverse implication on your score. But as time goes, as you build up your history over a period of time, so that will potentially roll out and then can improve your score in the future. So there's no automatic, immediate, massive score improvement if you settle the debt. The history still sits there, but it does have also a positive element because of the factors that I mentioned as well.
Okay. And will having no default information on my credit report automatically mean that I must score low risk?
Again, scores are built up over time. I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. If you take out, a lot of the youth of today are getting access to credit for the first time. They're getting their first credit card, or they're getting their first, a retail loan. So it's actually quite interesting. In South Africa, more than 50% of consumers' first credit product is a retail loan or a retail store card, or something like that as well. And so you might have like a good payment history for 6, 7, 8, 9 months. But again, like I mentioned earlier, your reputation is improved over time. So your score, you might look at it and say, well, that doesn't reflect because I've never defaulted, et cetera, but my score is still good versus great, or average versus great. That's because it's a long game. The credit score, your credit wellness is a marathon. We aren't sprinters and hurdlers here. We are steeplechase and comrades marathon runners, and that relates to all of us. Because it's a long game. You've got to start somewhere. It's the first step that you start, then the second step, then the third step. I've never seen anyone start on the 100th step, except maybe relay races, but that's a different story. We have to have another webinar about that. But that's what it takes. So it takes some time to build up your credit score. It takes some time to be considered extremely low risk by a credit provider. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen within a couple of months either.
Now, Paul, when does your personal credit score influence your business credit score?
Often, I would say, if I could, you must remember that the National Credit Act is a very interesting piece of legislation. It's a very good piece of legislation, complicated at times, but what legislation isn't. I think that's the fun part. And Mike, you and I talked about it earlier today about some of the complexities of red tape and how we can make things improve, but that's, again, a different story. According to the National Credit Act, if your business has an annual turnover or asset value less than R1 million, you are considered a consumer, if I could put it that way, as a sole prop, from that sort of perspective. So your consumer credit score will influence your business credit score immediately. So when you go over the R1 million, then it's a combination of both. Like I mentioned to you earlier, and I think Tava talked about it a couple of weeks ago at the same time, is that, is that directors of organizations' personal consumer reports can affect a business credit score as well. So if you have 3 delinquent directors who have multiple judgments against them, I can confidently say, but not guarantee, but I can say with a high level of confidence that the business credit score will be impacted by that as well. So it does play a role. It's not overly dependent. For example, you can be the employee of an organization and your personal credit score will not impact your business's credit score. But when you are a business owner, like I think the majority of people on this call are, then yeah, it will have an impact. And I encourage you to check both, not just one.
Now, Paul, just if you can just remind us what the value is for our members in knowing both their personal as well as their business credit score. I know you've touched on this slightly.
Yeah, so I think it's important to do the following. Number one is that your personal score is all about you. You have the responsibility of improving it. It's your well-being. It's the quality of life. It reduces your own stress. It shows responsibility if you discipline and making go that sort of direction, and it helps you. If you come to a point one time when you do need credit for the sake of needing credit versus buying luxury items, which what some people do, then your credit well-being, credit wellness is going to alleviate a lot of stress for you. It's going to simplify the process, and then most importantly, you're going to get you can negotiate some good deals as well. This is the reality. Debt doesn't have to be expensive. If your credit score is good, you're low risk, your debt can be affordable, which I think is great. I think the second thing from a business perspective is that although it might seem complicated, I encourage you to do it because it does give you the ability to grow your business, to survive, to grow, to get access to funding, to be able to support your customers, to be able to support, to grow into the supply chains that you're in as well at the same time. So again, I just want to just say that I wrote it down on a piece of paper. And for those of you who know me, for me to write things on a piece of paper is quite something. Understand the process and you will win. And I encourage you to be patient, to be disciplined, because this will help you with wise decision making. So those are the key components that you have to look at.
Okay. And Paul, if you could just remind us again, how do we get our personal and business credit reports and scores from Experian?
Okay, so when we go back to the place where we can all sit and have a cup of virtual coffee together, there on the top left and right hand side of the screens are these links. Get your personal score, get your business credit score. If you click on the personal credit score, it goes to the NSBC Financially Fit page, which we are again very proud to support all of you on. And then it'll take you through to mycreditcheck.co.za. So https://www.mycreditcheck.co.za, whatever it is, and that will give you your personal credit score. We ask you to register in 5 easy steps. Number one is to enter your ID number and agree to the terms and conditions. Please, I encourage you all to read terms and conditions. I know they are weird no matter what we're doing, but the terms and conditions of My Credit Check are very sound. Your personal information is secure and safe, but that's just generally. The second thing is then you put your email address in, your phone number, which we'll verify from a one-time PIN code, create a password, and then you get access to your credit report and browse through that. You can download as a PDF, you can browse through the different components. And again, I'm encouraging you to please do so today. After Mike's and I's Q&A, going back to the area where we can consult, some of our consultants and sales team and support team will be available to you to have a conversation with you about your particular credit score. We as Experian are allowed to extract data from the system because of the POPIA Act, etc. So I encourage you to come with your credit score or your credit report to the consultants to talk through it with them, please. So you can have your personal credit score immediately. On the second part, from the business credit side of things, is download from that link that Karen's up there. It's also on the top right hand side of the floor, the first floor. When we get back in there, the virtual conference room. There is a questionnaire that we ask you to please fill in. It's quite comprehensive. And there's a reason why it's comprehensive, because of the nature of the business that we're in. I encourage you to please input all the information. Take some time, but it's time well spent. Please do so. And then be truthful, be honest, because it'll be helpful to you. Once you've completed that questionnaire, please email it to businessinfo@experian.com. And we will get back to you with your business credit score within 5 days. And then what will happen then is that we will start an engagement with you as a business owner to take that to new levels and new conversations at the same time. So those are the two ways of getting it. And again, I think I've said this for 58th time, but please, I encourage you to do it. I like to tell people I'm going to tell you something, then I tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I've just told you. So I'm going to say it again. This credit score is your credit wellness. It's who you are. It belongs to you as a consumer, as an individual, and as an organization. Your success in life, your happiness in life, your comfort in life is not guaranteed by your credit score, but by being able to manage it better, it'll make life a little bit easier for yourself, and you'll actually know where you are. It'll allow you to make brave decisions. It'll allow you to be comforted in the fact that you are doing what you're doing is right. And most importantly, it gives you information to see how the rest of this world from a corporate credit provider looks at you and sees you. Because you might know something, but the world sees different because of data. Go fix your data if it's wrong, so the world can see differently. So that's why I encourage you to do that.
Paul, in my role at NSBC over the past many years, I've witnessed thousands and thousands of business owners and their businesses unable to get credit. Tiny little things that are wrong on their credit report that can be fixed almost instantaneously. So from my side to all our attendees, it's one of my passions in life, for business perspective, to encourage and get everybody out there to really get their credit scores, fix it. It's easy, and there's of course a slight process attached. But if your business is important to you and your family's financial fitness is important to you, then I think you can take Paul's advice and certainly my encouragement to do that. But on that note, Paul, who can we speak to discuss personal or business credit reports with someone from Experian?
Yeah, so like we mentioned before, there's going to be a couple of my expert colleagues in the virtual environment afterwards. There will be private consultation rooms, or breakaway rooms there as well. I encourage you to click on them and go chat to whoever is the lucky one that gets to talk to you. I also encourage you to please bring your personal credit score, so go download it so it's available, because you can't say to, well, my ID number is so much, what's my credit report? We're not allowed to do that. You have to consent to it. You need to register on My Credit Check to do so. So I encourage you again to do that. And you can talk to them as well. There's email addresses available. The NSBC website has got some phenomenal contact information around the Financially Fit page. I encourage you all to go and have a look at there as well. We've worked very closely with our marketing team led by Taryn in Experian as well, to make sure that the content that there is very enriching and very educational to you as business owners and as consumers. I encourage you to look through that and read through that as well. We will be having, so there's the email addresses, there's our website, go to experian.co.za. There's also mycreditcheck.co.za or .com.co.za, and there's a lot of information there as well. You are building bots that can help you just answer some basic questions, but that's the best way of doing it. We also have a call center number which you can get hold of, but I think at these times it's nice to interrogate your own credit report, make notes, talk to someone today, or be in contact via email and go from that sort of side, and I encourage you to do that. And then, also if there's something funny on your score, you can also pick up the phone and phone your credit provider and say, hey, Mr. Bank or Mr. Retail Store, my credit report says I still have an account open with you, but I closed it 10 years ago. What's the case? So there's also those sort of trigger points and actions that you need to put into place to sort that stuff out as well. And unfortunately, those sort of things, slip through. And so that's why it's important to have a look at that and go from that side. And so then just from our side as well is that we love partnering with NSBC. We love what Mike and his team are doing. We love what the role that we could play to help grow this economy in South Africa generally. And all the actions that we have, it all stems to ourselves. We all can't just sit back and expect everything to happen. We actually have to do stuff ourselves, if I could put it that way. And so it starts off with your credit wellness, your financial fitness, is that you understand where you are, understand how fit or unfit you are, and go through some steps to improve it. So I encourage you to do that at the same time.
And Paul, just an insight into what's still coming up in this amazing campaign?
Yeah, lots. So in 2 weeks' time, I really encourage you to join. I think it's in 2 weeks' time. I don't know the exact date. But Mike's going to be doing a Q&A with Ferdy Petersen, our CEO. Ferdy is a great guy. I mean, he's done some phenomenal stuff in his life. He's got the heart the size of gold, or the size of the planet, whatever the biggest planet is. He's a phenomenal business person, but a phenomenal people's person as well. And he's passionate about this country, this economy, and the people in the country and economy. And so Mike's going to be doing a one-on-one Q&A with him. I really encourage you to come listen to that. It's inspiring beyond belief. And then at the end of March, we've got it's Karen and Mandy who will be joining Mike and the crew here as well to get more stuck into details around the specifics relating to business credit and business access around like that. And those ladies are clued up. They know what they're talking about. So I highly encourage you to get into that. Our partnership with NSBC is a long one. We've got some very interesting and exciting products and services coming to market this year. And we are working with Mike and the NSBC team to use this as a platform for launching some of those things. So, be patient, work on your credit score in the meantime, and then you'll see some very exciting things coming here. So that's what we're going to do. And then help out wherever possible to make sure that we help you become financially fit.
Paul, yeah, I just want to say from myself to you, Paul, to your team, to Experian a company, your commitment, your passion to the SME sector, I've witnessed it. And we are, second of all, we are truly grateful for choosing the NSBC as your partner in this incredible initiative, which I know will make a difference to thousands of business owners and their businesses throughout the coming months and years. So, Paul, this was absolutely inspirational. Your passion is obvious. Your commitment is also obvious. I want to thank you for your time spent this morning. It's been awesomely inspiring for me. It's a big topic on my side, and I want to just take another opportunity to thank you, and of course to all our attendees out there. Thank you very much for being part of this. Without you people, we can't do this. And stay with us. We've got incredible stuff coming up with Experian over the months to come. Stuff that's really going to make a big difference and impact your business only positively. So, Paul, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day. Good weekend ahead, and all the very best to you and your team.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks to NSBC, and thanks to everyone, and have a phenomenally successful 2022.
Great. So, Paul, I'll say goodbye to you. If you could just put off your camera, and Mike, I'm sad to see you go. And Leanne, you're welcome to join me back.
Hi, Mike. Wow, that was incredibly insightful.
I just never stop learning, Leanne, and I know you share the same sentiment. And I always say if I can pick something small out of each session, you just build your wealth of knowledge, and which we can action. And what's amazing about the insights this morning again is that these points will make a big difference to all of us. And I always quickly go back and check my report. Maybe there's 2 cell numbers there. Maybe there's 2 addresses. I must have a look at that, because I think these are the things that we can choose quickly to make a positive difference. And so, Leanne, from your side, I know you're the expert on this amazing technology. What is your advice now from this very moment for our attendees out there?
Okay, everyone. So now we are going back to the floor. The floor is a very exciting space. You can freely move between the tables. For those of you who are new to this platform, all you do is double click on a table and you move there. What I want to draw your attention to, and Paul mentioned it as well, is that here and now, today is the day that you can speak to the experts face to face. So once you're at a table, you switch on your camera and your mic, and you can have a conversation with the experts from Experian. If you look at the floor plan at the bottom of your screen, you will notice there's a purple section and a pink section of tables. Now you'll see that there are 2-seater tables. The reason for that is that this is your private conversation. It's your private information, so you can be assured that it'll only be shared between you and the consultant at that table. So if any of you cannot see those tables because maybe your screen is a bit small, you can just as a small technical tip is if you click on the screen, hold it in and pull the floor plan up. Those then tables you can move around the floor plan. So if you cannot see them, just remember, click anywhere on the floor plan and hold it, and then you can pull the floor plan up, and then you can see those tables. Mike, something that is also very interesting and that small business owners must think about, now that they are more educated about credit scores, their personal and business credit scores, it's very important to educate your employees about that. So encourage all of your employees to go and check their personal credit scores. I know that you care about your employees, you care about their financial wellness. So this is not just for business owners, it is also for the people under you, for your team. So go tell them today, make it their Friday, Financial Friday, and get them to go and check their personal credit scores. I did it the other day. It takes like 5 minutes. It's so quick and easy. The interface is really easy. So we really want to encourage you to do that for them. And then Mike, let me just double check if there's anything else I missed. I think Paul covered it. Oh,
you know what I learned today, Leanne? you know
Tell
what I
me,
learned?
Mike.
You know, I check my credit score often. I'm proud of that, and I know I've got a great credit score because I'm sure of that. But you know what I've learned? Well, it reminded me today that I don't often check all my contact details, you know, my physical address and all that. You know, I assume it's right. And what I didn't know is that if you've got like 2 or more addresses, if you've got maybe 2 contact numbers, that can have a negative effect. So I must admit, I mean, in future, when I check my credit scores, I'm not going to check the score. I'm going to check my contact details, my addresses. And I think that's another great learning today. And I think we should all try and do that. Because I think the people who do check their credit scores, I'm not sure how many also check their contact details if it's too cluttered.
Absolutely. I also didn't know that. So that was an insight for me there too. Mike, then just another technical thing. The consultants will be on floor 1. You will notice that on the left side of your screen, there are buttons with numbers. It looks almost like a calculator. If you find yourself on floor 2, just click on the number 1 and make sure you are on floor 1, because that is where the consultants will be available. Really maximize this time, use this time, go and speak to the experts. Even if you don't have your business credit score, even if you don't have your personal credit score, you can still ask them questions. But I would encourage you, the floor is going to be open for the next hour or so. If you haven't got your scores, go and do them quickly and come back. The platform is open. You can hop in and out, and then you can speak to those consultants. Lastly, Mike, we know that this environment is all about networking, and we know that networking is extremely powerful for businesses to grow our businesses. Mike, do you have some tips that our attendees can take?
You know, Leanne, you know, I'm passionate about networking, and what's also important about this era, virtual networking for many is more effective than a physical networking. So networking hasn't stopped, but I think we've got to remind ourselves, and I'll always say it, we've got to start by thinking like a doctor, learning how to take people's pain away, listen attentively, have empathy, you know, talk less, listen more, and try and see where you can help others. Try and see where you can take people's pain away. And equally as important, be authentic, be you, be true to yourself, help others, and you'll always be okay. And that's what makes networking in a professional way refreshing. You don't have to rush out there and try and do a pitch and sell things. Those days come. Build relationships and work on those relationships. Help the people around you. And in that way, you'll make a difference to yourself and to others.
Those are absolutely excellent tips. And believe me, Mike and I have been on this platform for a while. We've had feedback from many of you who have attended, and those tips are gold, absolute gold. All right, everyone, I think we are ready to end the formal part of this event. Enjoy the networking, enjoy connecting with like-minded people, learn from them, help others, as Mike said, and remember to go and do your credit scores. Thank you, everyone, for attending today, and we will see you on the floor. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Leanne. All the best, everybody.